Welcome to Loaded and Rolling. I'm your host, Thomas Watson. This is episode 2 of free range, all natural, no teleprompter kind of content here. Tried it the first time, A/B testing, going for round 2. Want to sound a little more authentic. And speaking of authentic things, we're going to be talking today about trucking and social media. It's something that a lot of people do, but sometimes it can feel very begrudgingly. And part of my job is also doing social media. So this has been a learning process for everyone. But luckily for us today, I'm bringing in a social media expert, content creator, and meme master himself. So we're going to dive right in today. Going to be welcoming Justin Martin here. If you don't know Justin, he was from Back the Truck Up, What the Truck, and FreightWaves. He does it all. 15 years as a veteran driver as well. And he's one of the individuals that you want to talk to and find out what's going on in the social media space. What's at the tip of the spear? This is the guy. Justin, welcome. Pleasure to have you on.
Thanks for having me.
So before we get into the social media stuff, tell us about, when you were a driver. What was it like doing it for 15 years? And was there even a social media game back then?
Totally different way back in the day, especially start early on. Most companies had like a no social media policy. They didn't want, at least the companies I drove for, I was hauling specialized sensitive freight. So one, they didn't want their logo plastered everywhere. And also they didn't want you putting out your information on where you were located out there to the public. But the times are different now. A lot of companies actually approach their drivers today and say, hey, we want you to be an ambassador for our brand. Get out there and start recruiting. Most drivers will have some kind of referral code or, recruiting program that they use. So it's just another source of income for a lot of these drivers too.
And thinking about that, I noticed when I first started this job as well, there's a whole plethora of YouTube drivers who just, I guess, record their trips. They're talking about it. But I've noticed that with large carriers and other trucking companies, oftentimes it's like a half-hearted attempt where it's like, well, here's our driver spotlight or here's your weekly safety message. Is this something where maybe they don't want their drivers to really talk about how it is? Is there a firewall here, or is this just we're not in on the cool kids game yet and still learning the ways?
I think half of that is most of your YouTube truck drivers that you see are guys that are like driven and passionate about the industry. Also, they're trying to grow their own personal brand. Whereas some of these like half-hearted attempts by companies, maybe the driver's just not into it. They're not comfortable being in front of camera. I mean, that's part of the reason why you're a truck driver in the first place is you want to be away from people. You don't want to be, truck drivers don't necessarily like having a camera in front of their face all day long, I guess, unless it's their own camera.
Was the driver? I'm wondering with the driver-facing cameras if the driver's going to ask the company, "Hey, can you just give me that feed real quick? I'm going to do my podcast and just use that front-facing camera."
Exactly. Tie their feed into like a Twitch account, and fingers crossed nothing bad happens while the driver's on the job. But there are a couple of guys out there that have pretty good numbers out there. You grow your audience on Twitch, and the tips start rolling in, and it's nice passive income.
That's what blows my mind. A lot of folks understand there's this whole social media world. There's even the ones where people are getting tips by saying like banana and other random word combinations. And if you give them coins, which you buy for real monetary transactions, then they say it in like a rapid fire succession. So we've almost started gamifying this process of content, and it's like you're regurgitating it for tons of money.
Yeah, and some channels will have like content locked behind a paywall, so you got to pay to like see exclusive content. Other times it's just somebody's a fan and they want to give you some spare change as like a thank you. Every once in a while on the What the Truck TikTok stream, somebody will throw like a coin here and there. Like one coin I think is worth like half of a fraction of a penny. But the other day we got a tip from some guy that was like, on his end he paid $140, but after TikTok gets their cut, we're left with $50. So you don't have to be a big account out there. You just have to have a constant output of content and an audience that's willing to listen to what you have to say.
Before we dive into how to get good at trucking social media, is that cut? TikTok makes their money, I'm assuming, off the cut. Do other platforms as well take a cut if you get like a Twitch token or something else? Are you always having to pay homage to someone else before you even get it?
Well, with Twitch, they'll have ads in between certain spots of the stream. I believe it's up to the content creator whether they do like a pre-roll ad or a halfway through or a banner or whatever. But yeah, a lot of times they'll have like special emojis that are like locked behind a paywall on their account. So if you want to be able to like have a special emoji that's tied just to that channel. You got to subscribe to them, and it's a monthly fee. And yeah, Twitch is making money hand over fist with this.
Holy moly, I need to get in on this. But
Hmm.
speaking of people who want to get in on this action, starting out in trucking, supply chain, social media, it does feel at least, well, I mean, I've been doing this for 2 years, so I don't have a very long timeline of thinking about it, but it does feel like there's getting a lot of traction and buzz in this space. For folks who are looking from the outside in, what is it like right now? Because it kind of feels like the Wild West.
Yeah, trucking has been around. It's a more than 100-year-old industry. Social media is, barely over a decade. So trying to merge the two really hasn't been something that a lot of companies are interested lately until now. So in driver communities too, a lot of it's mostly just drivers complaining to each other. Part of what drew me to FreightWaves was that their audience at FreightWaves is more of like the C-suite level guys. And FreightWaves understood that, hey, most of our audience is like up here, and we're trying to reach guys, down on the ground floor and also in the middle. And I thought that would be a great opportunity to try and merge those two audiences, because obviously everybody has stuff that they need to be saying to each other.
I think that was half of why I took this job as well. I was at a startup. I was an ops manager. I never had any media experience. And then it says, talk about trucking. You get a podcast. Here we are. So I think that's very interesting because you bring up such a great point. I've noticed even managing drivers that the communities that exist are typically drivers only. They're either sharing stories or they're complaining about things or trading trips, but they don't really want that information out. They want to stay insular. And so is that something where we're seeing a new breed of driver influencers and other folks kind of step out of this and say, well, maybe my path forward is trying to educate these higher up C-suites and get my message out versus just using it as, internal clout or a grievance board?
Yeah, if you're in a Facebook group, say with like 50,000 members, and everybody's complaining all day long about how they're struggling to put food on the table and they can't pay their fuel bills and et cetera, et cetera. Meanwhile, you're out there crushing it. You really are taking a big risk, saying, "Hey, I'm doing great right now. Things are great. You should follow my lead." Because most people, one, they're not going to believe you, and probably the other half will attack you, saying, "How dare you succeed while all the rest of us are struggling right now."
Negative, that's the one thing I've learned through this social media thing is even negative engagement can be processed in terms of your message. Let's say starting out, we want to start a trucking social media thing. I'd be a carrier, a company, whatever. What are the biggest things I need to think about? Is this something where I have to pick a platform, or should I work on my messaging and brand? What would you recommend starting out? What should we be aware of?
I would say pick a platform first. It is really, really hard to try and grow. So you have TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, I guess, is still a thing. I'm not too sure. YouTube. Pick one, maybe two at most, and then hammer as hard as you can on content and growing an audience on that, and then try to branch out. Because I've been trying to grow all the platforms here with originally Back the Truck Up, now What the Truck, and it's a struggle. I do really well on Twitter. TikTok, we got really lucky putting out great content on that, but it's hard to try and copy paste content from one platform to the other and then hope that you'll get the same metrics on either one. Sometimes we'll put a video on Twitter and it'll get maybe a couple thousand views, but then we put it on TikTok, it'll get 500,000, and it goes on Facebook and it's got like 5. You just never know.
That's what blows my mind. I think that's the biggest hurdle for people getting in this is you have to keep posting. You don't know what works yet,
Yes.
and you're not big enough to know what works.
Yeah, and don't get caught up on like having low views on something. Like if you get lucky and you have something go viral, but then like the next 5 posts you have don't kind of fall flat, don't worry about it. The beauty of having posts that don't do well is, one, like nobody sees it. So they're only going to focus on the stuff that does really well.
And that's what kind of blows my mind too, is because I'm trying to work on my own engagement, and then you kind of get frustrated and you don't know what that virality is. So let's talk about X then, because X used to be formerly Twitter. Changes in algorithms. Let's say we're going to focus on that. Is there anything, especially in that space, folks want to be aware of compared to maybe I should do a LinkedIn or maybe a YouTube? Do I have to move my messages around here if I'm a company, or if I'm a large company, is it pay more to be boring on like LinkedIn or X? Like, is there a specific fit, if that's what I'm trying to say?
Well, okay, so we'll tackle LinkedIn first. The beauty of LinkedIn is that, one, it's so like corporatized and boring that even just a little bit of like excitement on there does really well. Unfortunately, I'm like not very good at it, but I have like our mutual friend Reed. He's out there crushing it on Instagram right now, just because it is such a buttoned up, uptight platform typically that, as soon as you have one guy out there that's like the self-appointed court jester, everybody latches on and says, "Okay, this is our guy. He's hilarious. So I'm gonna follow his posts."
That's I've been seeing a little bit of that as well because it feels like the trap. Let's talk about mistakes. Traps you can fall into. One thing I keep seeing is groups of people who have become large followings. They have this, self-appointed clout, and then they're saying, "Well, you should follow this formulaic thing. You should do, the same layout every single time," and then everyone starts mimicking it. Is that really the way to go, or is it really important? What are some of the things you should try to be? Because I do feel like some people get shoehorned into saying the classic LinkedIn, I saw a cat in the tree, and then I let him free, and then now he was my hiring manager, and he gave me a job or something like that,
Yeah, there's different tactics that work really well on different platforms. X is a good example here. Um, Find a really large account that's like talking about stuff that you're interested in and you think that your audience would be too, and turn on post notifications on that account. So every time they post something on there or they reply to somebody, you get an alert on your phone, and then see what the post is, and then try to come up with something that you can either you can add on to or repost to your audience. And what that does is, you, by gaming the algorithm, because there's such a large account, eyeballs are already on them. So if you're like one of the first accounts to reply to them, especially if you have a verified check mark on the account, you'll be pretty much floated up to the top of the account. And then within like 6, 7, 8 hours, by the time say 100 people have replied, your comment hopefully should still be kind of at the top of that thread. Doesn't work all the time, but again, always be posting. So don't just do that with one account. Do it with like maybe 5 or 6 accounts, and with luck, in a couple of months, you'll grow a couple thousand followers easily.
That's what strikes me because it seems too good to be true. You see these people post, you see they have tons of this, they show how much they're getting paid on this platform because they're getting kickbacks, but then you look at what they do and it's just nonstop work. Is that one of those things, I guess, is when you transition from being a full-time professional driver, you're going in the social media scene, are a lot of people prepared for the amount of work it takes just to be on this platform and constantly engaging to try and build that, brute forcing it basically?
Yeah, no, because most people, when they think of like how social media is, they think of how they interact with it typically day to day. They don't think of it as like, this is now my job. And just like any other job, if you want to get really good at it or have good performance, you got to put in the work. And believe it or not, there actually is a lot of work that goes into it, because it's a lot of it's timing, having stuff already in the chamber ready to go, and then also being able to think on the fly and have something like, if you're competing against 5 other people that are doing the same thing that you're doing, you need to be a little bit funnier, a little bit edgier, a little bit faster than what they're doing, to be able to grow faster than they can.
So it's like mimetic Darwinism, because I noticed that with
Yeah.
anonymous accounts as well, because a person doesn't provide their information on X, formerly Twitter, but somehow they also have amassed this giant following through various means. And is that kind of what we're talking about as well? As you don't even have to put your name on it, but if you just brute force it and you're witty enough or you're engaging enough, that's kind of where it happens.
Yeah, yeah. So talking tactically about that, like with anonymous accounts, a lot of it is like people. It's somebody working like a 9 to 5 job, and they don't want to get fired for having like a spicy hot take out there. So that's usually why most people run accounts like that. I've always been very forward, like with who I've never tried to hide behind like an anonymous account. I kind of grew up. I'm 40, so I'm like an elder millennial. And early on in high school, like I was always on like these online communities, and I always use my real name. I'd meet people that I knew online. Um, the whole reason I lived in Philadelphia is because of this website, Newgrounds, which was like one of the earliest user-generated websites out there. So this whole thing of like never meet strangers from the internet, I've done that my whole life, and it's worked out pretty okay so far.
And that's what I'm kind of curious, because I feel a lot of times messaging. I have to plug the enterprise trucking thing in here, because that is what the little show subhead says. But when I look at that, a lot of it feels very bland and vanilla. No, they are celebrating things, but it doesn't feel like. It's almost like that first level, the first layer. Congratulations, you have sent some information. But for folks who want to kick it up a notch, is there some kind of additional thing you can add? Because I feel like these large trucking companies don't have much personality. And for the drivers that are younger, tech savvy, they're connected to social media, are they going to have to change to try and recruit them? Or is it just by simply being there, You're just reminding them like Coca-Cola or something.
Yeah, it all depends on like what you're trying to do with the account. So brands like McDonald's and Wendy's, for whatever reason, were like really amazing at this on Twitter. Back when it was called Twitter years ago, they had whoever their social media managers that were running these accounts were like really clued into like the layers deep of irony that like really perpetuates everything online discourse on social media. Like you can have a corporate account that's like, here's McDonald's, eat our burgers, enjoy your meal, or you can have one that like gets into like Twitter beefs with the Wendy's account, and it makes it fun for the audience, but then also it's your people that are like engaging in that content don't also realize that they're watching ads. Basically, it's a new type of ad.
It's weaponized spontan, and I think that's something that
Yeah, that's a good term.
the trucking social media space has lagged behind a lot of times in tech, but it's also lagged behind in messaging. And I think that having this weaponized ability, if you hire the right people, if I'm a large carrier and I want to revitalize my image or something, I do wonder if that's kind of the way to do it, is hire some savvy folks, spruce it up a bit, and then see if that can gain me organic traction versus the constant billboards on the road.
That's a tough task, because like just for example, we'll use Swift Transportation. Swift is one of the largest carriers out there, and of course we all know what posts about Swift are typically like. So God help them if they want to hire somebody to run like their social media accounts. That's somebody who's going to have to be very good at using like reverse psychology to kind of play into that. Like, okay, yeah, sure, we're all over the place, and you see what our drivers are up to, but it's also because we're the largest out there. There's a reason why you see our trucks everywhere. It's because we are everywhere.
So if I'm a Swift social media manager, let's hypothetically do this, and I don't have to charge anyone a few $1,000s. If I hired a savvy social media, let's say you were in charge of it, would one of the memes, which is they can't drive very well and constantly get in accidents, would a successful way to counter that brand as well as sponsor it would be to have the no backup accident of the week and highlight a random person and show them successfully backing into a dog while not having an accident, or a truck parking spot?
Sure, and because their fleet is so large too, they have plenty of drivers with millions of miles accident free too. They could absolutely showcase their drivers too, and make it a point to say, hey, if you want to be if you want to be somebody that's featured on this, come drive for us, and we'll show you how it's done.
That's what I'm thinking of. There's a lot of opportunities. Looking at accounts, you had a post, I'm having to use the ecosystem now, where Lockheed Martin had about 7 different accounts for different things. So that brings me to a good question, which is, if I am a large company and I'm in the trucking and supply chain or any space, do I need to have 7 different accounts? And you said something they had to pay. Is it something where you have to pay more just to have official status if you're a large company?
Yeah, so you pay $8 a month to get a verified blue check mark on your account, or you pay I think it's up to 5,000. It's $5,000 now for an affiliate account, and then any other account. So like, say I'm CNN. CNN pays Twitter $5,000 a month, and then every CNN journalist, they have to pay, I believe it's an extra $50 a month to have an affiliate badge. So if you're CNN, you have like the square user icon and a gold badge. Now, if you're a CNN employee that's on Twitter, you'll have a blue check mark and then like a tiny little CNN logo next to your name too. They're paying $50 a month per account for that. So what Lockheed Martin decided to do was, for Lockheed Martin overseas, every single one of their jet fighters, and like I think like one of their missile platforms, they're paying $5,000 per month for each of one of these accounts. When instead they could just pay $5,000 for the Lockheed Martin account and then have all of those other accounts under affiliate accounts, and they're saving tens of thousands of dollars per month.
Hypothetical. They have an account for the F-35, the jet that went missing. Would it have been savvy social media policy to post on the official F-35 Twitter account or X account saying, "Have you seen me?"
Exactly. Even the Charleston, I think it was the Air Force Base. Yeah, the Air Force Base that lost the jet was out there saying, "Hey, we're trying to find this thing." They could have 100% glommed onto this and killed it with the engagement, but they're paying $5,000 a month for nothing, for absolutely nothing.
It feels like there's a fear, and I do wonder if this is an issue because maybe your traditional marketing people are worried about negative opinions in the brand space. Should this be something where maybe that you should test it out, A/B test it, and say, have something a little funny and spicy, tongue-in-cheek, recognizing it, have you seen me, look for this? Or is it because they're large and publicly traded? Because I've seen this before. You become almost unable to do anything, and you just come off as this boring and stuff by design because you're too fearful.
Yeah, yeah, and also the fear of annoying an advertiser that'll chase a lot of the fun out of these spaces too. But I think what companies need to realize too is that advertisers can be in on the fun on this as well, as long as you're not flat out attacking something. You can have fun with it.
That's what I'm thinking about. I especially was thinking of it may have been Wendy's which took the alien and did a burger thing, and because they picked up on the current trend. Kind of thinking of biggest mistakes then, because I know, is there any that we've started an idea, I'm going to pitch this to my boss, I want to do this social media stuff. What are the biggest pitfalls that you see that could either, make it not succeed, or maybe get my butt in trouble if I am one of those companies where they say they like it, but then they say, oh, well, I didn't like it actually?
Well, if you're a company that's spending $5,000 a month for that Twitter affiliate account, and you're not getting enough engagement to try and pay for those costs, that's a big cost right there, a big mistake. The other one too is again, it's going out and just attacking an advertiser unknowingly. If you have a social media person who's out there just shooting off rockets left and right, but then also not realizing hey man, that person you just flamed in front of our big audience is keeping the lights on. You got to be a little more savvy about that kind of stuff.
I learned that the hard way as well. If you share information and it does pick up and it gets viral and 30,000 eyeballs see it, you don't know which eyeball may have gotten angry or inadvertently been like, hey, you shouldn't have done that, friend. And then you kind of have an owned goal. So I guess that's probably the thing is you have to have that balance between, it's like a tightrope.
Yeah, and because it's via text, you when you read something different, everybody might read it and interpret the tone a different way.
That's what, because it's like 70% of our communications like body language, and like text is like 10%. The other 20% is like my, textual contexts. So looking at that, trying to wrapping things up a little bit here, got a little bit of time left. Looking to the future. A lot of things on FreightX, not associated with the company FreightX. I think there's a company FreightX, but Freight on X. Free advertising for them. They need to jump in. They need to call us. But, what are the opportunities there? Because I know that's what I'm focusing on. So I'll admit I'm a little biased right now. LinkedIn and FreightX are the two platforms I've chosen. What are your thoughts? Because it does feel like there is this grassroots wellspring group of logistics people that are becoming more active that I haven't seen in the past 2 years at least.
Yeah. Most of this stuff's been on LinkedIn for years, and people are a little more buttoned up on that because one is you got your name and where you work pretty much out there for everybody to see. Whereas on X, it's a little more behind a wall, so to speak. I just think there's a lot more fun happening on there right now. We're growing it. A lot more people are posting than ever before. And every time I find somebody, that is a FreightWaves employee, I shout them out. I'm like, hey, anybody in this space, start following us. And within like a week or two, they've got like hundreds of followers. So it really works.
Final strats. I saw this online. If you have X amount of followers, you reply. If you have Y amount, you can start posting. Is there a strat, or just keep throwing it out as much as you can? Reply, post, pics, commentary, whatever.
I'll always be posting. Always be posting.
Okay, perfect. That's what I wanted to make sure. We're going to figure this out as we go, but closing thoughts from your experiences in trucking. If there's any coolest thing, at least coming over to FreightWaves, what's the coolest thing you gotten to do so far here?
Oh man, that's a tough one. Having my own podcast for a bit with Rooster was really fun. Always wanted one, and I was able to. So, fun little tangent on this. If you are too timid about going into podcasting, or you think you're never going to make it big out there, all you need to do is make 21 episodes, and you're in the top 1% of all podcasts ever made. Period.
Oh, we're doing well then. So, congratulations for us. I think we're at number 68. So Thank you, sir, for making us a part of the award-winning podcast here at FreightWaves called Loaded and Rolling. Justin, pleasure to be on. Folks want to reach out more. I know we have your handle on there. We're going to get in touch with you or find out more about what you're working on.
Yeah, so my personal Twitter is at Super Trucker. I also run at FW What the Truck. Same for TikTok. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram at What the Truck.
Perfect. Justin, thanks for coming on as well, talking about some of the strats here, what works. I will see you on the interwebs, sir.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's going to be a wrap for today's show, but if you're just joining us live, this thing's going to be on YouTube as well as Apple and Spotify. We have a newsletter, Loaded and Rolling. The newsletter comes out Thursdays at 2 p.m. Eastern. A little combination of trucking news and stuff as well. Don't forget, folks, if you're interested in social media, always be posting. And also, speaking of posting, join us next week, 1 p.m. on Tuesday. We'll do it live.